everyone. My name is Priya, and I am the Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion Manager at Dynamo North East. So, welcome everyone, and I'm so pleased to connect with you all through this another episode of ETI podcast and video series, which we have been doing from the last year. I also would like to reiterate the fact that Dynamo has taken a very unique approach in addressing the equality, diversity, and inclusion in the Northeast tech sector. We believe embracing it, dignifying it, and inspiring it, we can really break barriers. And at the same time, we can bring in loads of different changes which we are looking to see in the world. So today, we have a very interesting topic, and it's regarding which we all can relate to, especially myself, regarding the diversity in the workforce. Diversity, as we all have spoken about in our previous episodes, relates to different genders and sexualities, and gender diversity does not simply mean equal representation and equal pay. What it does mean and does cover is also equal treatment, equal opportunities, and equal respect for all. So, before we start our episode and bring in our guest, I also would like to highlight a few facts that 1 in 10 Black, Asian, and minority ethnic LGBTQIA plus employees in the UK have been physically attacked at work in the last year. This is a very disturbing statistic, and it proves that equality, diversity, and inclusion does not only mean hiring and recruiting diverse staff, but also creating an inclusive and safe working culture which celebrates differences and which also allows the people to be their authentic selves. To discuss this crucial topic, we have today with us a very, very special guest. Her name is Estelle Blanks, and we really, personally, I'm very inspired by her work, by her amazing work in the Northeast, because it's not really easy to just say and not do. But she is a woman of action. She is also the executive director for the Innovation Super Network Northeast England, and the woman who has broken many stereotypes in relation to women in tech, diversity in innovation, innovation and challenges the women face, and business in the industry. So without the further ado, I would like to call in and welcome Estelle Blanks. Hello, Estelle. How are you doing?
Hi, Faria. I'm well, thank you. It's really good to be part of this podcast today. Really nice to see you.
Thank you so much. So obviously, before we actually go into questions and start discussing this topic, which is I can and I think you can also relate to very well, would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey? Why did you choose to work in the tech sector?
Yeah, in a nutshell, I would say that I work definitely in the innovation sector, which includes tech, and tech obviously is quite pervasive in innovation. And my journey is one of I came to the Northeast 23 years ago now from the south of France and fell in love with the region and really had a passion for entrepreneurship and economic development. And that's what led me to do what I'm doing today with the Innovation Super Network. And it's been quite a journey.
Oh, thank you so much. And what I really see is the passion for the region and the passion for what you do. And because you've touched on innovation, I think it's quite a time now that people start innovating in every field, not only in tech, but in every field, like we are doing, and Dynamo is doing in the field of equality, diversity, and inclusion. So let's just, before there's something that people have asked us during our surveys and feedbacks, that what is obviously we are aware that tech is quite a male dominated sector as it's been seen globally and nationally and then regionally. Would you like to share your experience of working in either a male dominated sector or an environment?
So my experience is I think one that a lot of women working in tech and generally innovation, new technologies, engineering in the Northeast would probably agree with. And also my experience of that and my interpretation of that experience has evolved over the years. So I've basically been involved in board at board levels, in all male board level. My first interview for my first job in the Northeast was male only, so I was a woman being interviewed with a male only interview panel. And I have to say that at a younger age, I wasn't too fazed by that. And didn't see necessarily what the problem was. I was so keen and so eager to get the job and get on with my career that I didn't really see it that way. But it's happened many times that I was part of meetings or even entire workshops and seminars where I would be the only woman there. And certainly the only woman of a kind of with a senior manager kind of leadership role in the room. Very often confused for the person who brings the tea or coffee or the note taker. All of these anecdotes that I know so many women have in the region and beyond. That's certainly my experience. What I would, however, say as well is that I've had some fantastic mentors in the Northeast, male mentors and people who have genuinely helped me in my career. So it's not at all of a kind of negative picture, of course. But my experience is that, there is definitely an issue, and one that I became more acutely aware of, funnily enough, more recently, certainly over the past few years, and I think that's been also brought by the, flurry of more media coverage around this issue probably as well.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And what I am so pleased to hear is that you've also shed very positive light as well on male being mentors, because sometimes we have got only one view of looking at things. But so thank you very much. And I think the viewers and the listeners could relate to it. With me as well, I have had so many male mentors as well who have proved to be very helpful, the way we are in now. So that's great. But because you were keen to work in the sector, and you've also identified that you sometimes in situations you were the only woman being present in the senior leadership role, have you ever been subjected to discrimination because of your gender?
Yes, yeah, and quite openly so as well. So that first interview I mentioned to you when I was, I don't know, I was 23 years of age or something like that. I was actually asked in the interview whether I intended to start a family, because I was quite young and pretty, and how long would I stay with the company for? And that was a question asked directly to me at my first interview. Clearly, I don't think you could get away with this now. But that was something real that happened to me. And that's, it's an interesting thing to reflect on these things, because at the time, as I said, I was so eager to get the job that I was ready to answer any question, including that.
And you see, this is the problem when you are sometimes when we go through discrimination, we ourselves don't know whether we are going through discrimination, because we're so eager to go, achieve our goals, even have something. We sometimes don't reflect on these things, and that's why sessions like these are very important, so people who are listening to it, they're aware of their surroundings and what is happening to them, and can take control of the things that should not be happening, the tone of voice, words, which we have to be very mindful, because there's a lot of debate around EDI and gender diversity, gender discrimination, gender pay gap. Why do you think is the reason that gender discrimination or bias takes place?
So that's where it gets really complicated. I think that, but at the same time, it's easy to understand. I think our society, and especially Western societies, have gender bias built in our systems. It's a systemic issue that is everywhere, from the way we are brought up, the way that we are educated, the way that we are led and managed. Discrimination, gender discrimination is embedded, and our perception in the workplace, if you think about the leadership attributes and the attributes that are generally given to a leader or an entrepreneur, are masculine attributes. And as a result of that, discrimination happens if you don't present with those particular attributes. So it's very much ingrained in our society from very early days, young age, school age, and very much in the workplace.
That's great. And I think, it's so important we understand the systemic disadvantage, because what I have seen, and what we have actually now looking at when I'm doing this work with Dynamo, is so much is coming out with the systemic disadvantage.
Mhm.
It's the systems that have put people through disadvantage, and that's where the working needs to be done. I was going through a Facebook video today of a little girl, and she was asking her mother that why there was something written in her textbook, man built something, and she's asking, why is it only man built everything? Why is it not humans, or why is it not men and women? So you see, now our children are picking on these things because of the ways we are now entering into digital world with social media, and with their understanding as well, because they are looking at their mums like yourself growing, and sitting on a very senior leadership role. So they are now starting to question and pick up, whereas in the past it wasn't there. How can, obviously you've got a lot of experience, how can you think that companies can further improve to make gender diverse teams, or build gender diverse teams?
So the good news here is, I think that there are things that people, big and small companies can do that don't cost anything. And that not necessarily costly to implement, but because it is systemic, I think the first thing that we need to understand is the kind of formula has to be individual change as well as systemic change. So we embarked back in 2018 on an interesting experiment, and it was a pilot project to try and do something about this, and especially with the SME sector in the Northeast, because it's such a big, important part of the economy in our region, and looking at how can we help SMEs address gender diversity issues. And we're specifically focused on gender diversity. And we were supported by the North-South Foundation, and worked with Newcastle University and lots of other partners as well, to try and do that. And we kind of piloted sessions with willing companies to try. And the first thing we try to do is to address unconscious bias and raise awareness of unconscious bias. And we had fantastic, very companies that took part of that, really, for that. They learned something, and what that did do is raise awareness of potential issues. However, if you do unconscious bias on its own, it's unlikely to get the systemic changes that you need, and that we're talking about. So it's a bit of a blended approach. Certainly starting with awareness raising. If you are aware of your biases, if you are aware that there's potentially an issue, you're more likely to be able to do something about it. So then the other thing we did is we had a lot of peer learning sessions where we had HR managers of larger organizations and SMEs and policymakers, and looked at what other people were doing. What were the complex or simple changes that people were implementing, and that's where the kind of magic happens. I think peer learning was a very effective way of of doing this from what companies do at recruitment stage, for example. So how do they ensure that they broaden the diversity of their candidates when they interview, and from that people learn some very simple things that were valuable to them in terms of how they use imagery, the language that is used. So, again, I'm not talking about massive changes, but actually over time, it can have a big impact. People also looked at their supply chains and the bias that may exist in their supply chain. So one of the companies we helped used an external recruitment agency. And although they were a very unbiased organization with a very open culture, the company that they were working with wasn't quite on the same page. So it's looking at things like that. One thing I always feel quite strongly about as well, and we've seen that many times, is being mindful of actions that are only here to fix the women. Women need more leadership training. Women need more mentoring. They need more support. It's part of the equation. I'm not at all criticizing organizations who do that. Of course, all your staff need support and making sure that it's offered to a diverse range of people in the organization is important. Some people even advocate positive discrimination, and there are pros and cons in this. But what I'm saying is there are many things that you can think of as a business, but being mindful of this is not just a fixing the women. So if you just put you tick the box by having, a women only workshop to have a bit of a chat, that's not likely to help it. And also because if you think about the point I made earlier about why diversity issues happen and this kind of attribution of success to certain leadership traits that are more attributed to men, you realize that if you're a man, that doesn't quite fit all those traits, or don't convey, doesn't have all of those traits. Or if you're part of a sexual minority, that also doesn't kind of fit that box. Whether you're a man or a woman, you're going to face discrimination. And so a revelation as well is making sure that companies include men and indeed their entire staff in the kind of the diversity agenda. Many more men than ever have childcare duty and want parental leave and all of these things. And unfortunately, in organizations that have systemic issues around that bias, will not give a fair treatment to those men. So that's really, I can go on for a long time.
No, I think that's great. And I do agree. And I very strongly believe that if you're looking to achieve gender equality, it's critical to engage men and boys in the process as well, because I completely agree with that. Not women only, women only leadership, women, because you're not actually addressing the root cause, and you're only thinking to just fix something, temporarily, or, just for the sake of it because there's a hype. We've also seen that gender diverse teams they have reduced risks, they are more challenging and more robust decision making, and they have also increased a lot of attraction to a wider talent pool, setting up examples, because you lead by example. So it just, in the end, what would you like to say, what do you see as the future of gender diversity in the region, especially in the Northeast tech sector? Are people becoming more aware, or is it only a subject for talk still?
Good question. I don't know if I've got if there is a right answer to this. So what is the future of gender diversity? One of the things that we faced in some of the work we did was this kind of feeling that there was a bit of a diversity fatigue. And actually, that's a myth. So, I think there are many organizations out there that want to tackle head on, the diversity agenda, and so hopefully the future is bright, and is bright in that, I'm an optimistic person. However, there's quite a strong body of research that also demonstrates that the advancement of women in the recent years has actually gone back rather than progressed. So, it's not all sorted by any stretch of imagination. And there will be differences depending on which region you look at, etc. But that's definitely something to bear in mind in the background. So, it has to be at the forefront of the agenda. As you said, it's an economic imperative. I think the case that doesn't need to be made is how beneficial it is for business, for growth, for innovation. There's numerous studies that demonstrate that more diverse teams lead to better results. And that certainly is a strong point. But in organizations that have been there a long time, and also in new organizations that with individuals who come from all sorts of different backgrounds, it's not going to change overnight. It would be nice to see more actions. We've done a lot of talking. Part of our role in the region as the Super Network is to bring people together to talk and debate and share expertise. But also part of the role is to make sure that we can help companies put concrete actions in place. So certainly I would like to see even more action than they are already, but there's some really promising intentions and activities going on as well.
That's great. And so obviously you have said that obviously Super Innovation Network, and as far as I am aware, Super Network Innovation is the network of networks.
Mm-hmm.
So that means they see and look at things very closely as well, and not only from the innovation side, but also to help people in developing and in growth, because that's very, very important. So if anybody would like to connect to Supernational Network, please, this is the website you all can visit, www.supernetwork.org.uk. You can meet the brilliant team, and you can also look at the brilliant work they've already carried out with women in diversity, women in innovation, Venture Fest, and there are loads of work that's still happening with Network. And as Estelle has said, there's so much promising things still needed to be done, and they are in the process as well. So it's great to connect with Super Network for that. In the end, obviously, Estelle, before you go, what will be your food for thought for today?
Ooh, I think it's there's a lot of work to do. I invite people to come and talk to us about the work that that they are doing. We are keen to share good practice. We're also keen to share any role models. You talked about role models before. We really believe in the power of stories and case studies, and we would like to hear about women who are innovating, and celebrate them and help them as well along the way.
Thank you. And that boils down to how Dynamo is looking at the EDI: embrace it, dignify it, inspire it. I really would like to thank you, Estelle, for your very valuable time, for us, looking very closely, and also for sharing your experiences, because you are an inspiration for many women out there, not only in innovation, not only in tech, but also in resilience, strength, power, grace, and dignity. So thank you so much for inspiring us all the way through. We really value you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Faria. Thank you.
In the end, thank you everyone who have been with us and who have been listening to amazing Estelle talking us through her experiences, her support, and how much Super Innovation Network is doing around promoting gender diversity. If you would like to connect to us and be a part of EDI series, subscribe to our channel, follow us on the social media, and turn to our website, that is dynamonortheast.co.uk. You can find us under the clusters. And if you would like to write to me or have any ideas on the topics which we should be discussing, it's a collective approach, and you can connect me on freya.usman@dynamonortheast.co.uk. In the end, please keep safe, Keep well, look after yourselves because you are very important. We can talk here, but we would not be able to do it without your support. Thank you so much. And again, embrace it, dignify it, inspire it. There's so much positivity around. So thank you very much. Have a great day.